Cool. Afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining today, and welcome to this month's GRIDtalk. So delighted to be joined by SSE this month, and yeah, we're looking at how we're building sort of project delivery playbooks for renewables. Just run through a few slides. So for those that are brand new to GRIDtalk, it's something part of our business is sharing best practice on capability development. We run a monthly webinar with clients and sort of industry bodies and talks, and we also do 2 live events a year. But it's really just about making sure that we share best practice on the work that we do. For whilst I've got you, our next event, which will be in June on the 27th, it'll be with Lace Partners. Lace are a client of ours, and they did a talk at our live event in April, just about how you actually make this land and how you get the change management behind it, but how you actually keep the IP asset constantly improving and how you get teams engaged in that. It was obviously great talk at our event, and we just thought for the broader sort of Method Grid community, we'd run that as a webinar. So yeah, hopefully I think the links for that will go in the chat. So yeah, by the way, if you've never met me before, so I'm Pip Morpeth. I'm Head of Professional Services for Method Grid, and today I'm joined by Steve. Steve, do you want to do a quick intro?
Yep, afternoon everyone, afternoon Pips, thanks for the opportunity. So yeah, my name's Stephen Rose, I'm the Head of Completions Commissioning for the offshore side of SSE Renewables.
Cool. Guys, we kind of call this sort of GRIDtalk, so it's very much talk, less slides. We'll use a few slides just to sort of signpost a few things, but please use the chat, and if you've got any questions as we go through the session, please just raise the questions and we'll try and sort of answer them as we go through the session. Right, for those that are brand new to Method Grid, look, our fundamental purpose is all we really care about is just helping teams improve how they deliver projects and services. The way we do that, though, is slightly different, just by connecting knowledge, experience, using technology. And our vision really is to build a platform that combines both knowledge and project management to facilitate that. And we've got some fantastic clients, including SSE. In terms of the kind of problem we solve, I might just make this bit bigger quickly. Sort of the core problem statement we find with clients is, look, it's cost of poor quality triggered by kind of inconsistent ways of working, ways of doing projects and doing delivery. I think if you look at the kind of pain symptoms 1 to 8, if you work in projects or you work in professional services, you'll experience them. The way we do things is inconsistent. Teams find it difficult. 6, we're constantly reinventing the wheel, and the knock-on effect is normally our staff sort of take a long time to get up to speed and get comfortable in the ways of working. Now, the theory of it is quite simple. It's kind of, look, you need sort of a method to help teams, or a process that helps them and provide clarity on ways of working. 2 is, you need the way of actually being able to track that people are compliant with those ways of working. I think everyone struggles with the compliance element. 3 is just about the people side. So people are going to need the confidence to actually apply that way of working for them to be compliant. And given the nature of the fact that we're involving humans, there is always going to be a kind of audit and assurance process involved in assuring how they deliver. And all we've tried to do at Method Grid is think about that problem slightly differently. And what we came up with was a platform that allows organizations to build their own kind of playbooks that sort of guide teams from the left to right through any process. And we call it Playbook really because we recognize that they need to be adaptable. I can't second guess every scenario every project manager is going to face. They're going to need to be able to adapt things and right size it to the environment. And that's what we came up with, the concept that you can clone playbooks and then put them into delivery. So that kind of grid deliver is the bit where, yes, I can take this process, I can clone it, and then I can track and tick things off, track progress, assign things to people, and use it as a way of assuring that teams are following the process, but also giving them the flexibility that they bring their expertise to shape that journey. And then there's the aspects of the kind of assurance. Yes, we put in stage gates and you can upload evidence and tick it off. But the real, probably most valuable aspect of it is that it avoids the kind of shelfware, which is if your teams are using it in delivery and it's constantly been challenged, improved, used, you find you get much better feedback to find how you actually improve that process. Now, Steve, I think we've obviously built your playbook. I think it's in delivery now, and I think you're just switching on sort of the assurance aspects of it, and probably having to make some improvements to the master as well as we go through that experience. But I think the key focus point for today is probably those two key points that you highlighted in yellow. All right. Hopefully that makes sense for everyone. So Steve, I think scaling renewable energy project delivery, I thought this slide was really good, but I was probably taken back by the complexity of renewables. I don't know if you want to share that with the team.
Yeah, I guess for anyone who is involved with the industry or looks from a side of the industry, probably thinks it's a little bit peculiar why we take so long to deliver an offshore wind farm. And it's really the whole life cycle from the initial competitive bidding of seabed, obtaining the right land, obtaining the grid connection, all of that development and planning work can take anything up to about 5 years. Typical offshore project with all of its cable routes into the coastline, possibly 30 to 40 stakeholders that need managing, any one of which might object and might take us to judicial review if they're not happy with an answer. So it just that front end takes a whole team, inordinate amount of time and significant expenditure. So in the tens of millions. That change as we go through our life cycle and stage gate process, which we've reflected in our playbooks, which we'll perhaps come on to later, as it then moves out of development into the procurement, design, construction phase. Again, that can take another 4 years of getting the design right, approaching the various stakeholders that will have the likes of National Grid, our supply chain, procurement. We might have to wait for a vessel to be built, literally, to come in and do that. They're building factories around the world, to build bigger and bigger foundations, higher and higher voltage cables. So the necessities of the finance in these projects means that all of the projects are getting bigger and bolder using larger turbines. I think I'm on my 5th project now in just over 10 years with SSE. Every single project has, come across some form of barrier and some sort of transformational sort of difference. And it's gone to bigger turbines. Greater Gabbard was the deepest water. We went to Beatrice, that became the deepest water, the next biggest turbines. We've gone to Sea Green, which is the deepest water. And now at Dogger Bank, we're the furthest away from anything. We're right smack bang in the middle of the North Sea. So all of that requires constant change, constant redesign. And the processes basically just haven't really kept up with that. The construction phase, realistically, is all the way on the right there in that last little 5 years. Commissioning phase, 18 months. So my part in the project, apart from input into designs and the consents, is just at the end there. And that's really why we've had to have a look at technology for this knowledge management to make sure that we can repeat this, but also update and change our processes as technology evolves.
I think, when we started, Steve, I think I probably underestimated the sheer complexity and breadth of the end-to-end life cycle, but also just the regulatory angle, just how yes, we're building UK, but actually the reality is it's a kind of global problem we have to solve.
Yeah, our supply chain is global. Substations come around from the other side of the world in Thailand for Dogger Bank, fitted out in Norway. We've got assembly yards in the UK building equipment for us. Vessels have come from across Europe. and supply chain. We've even had data cards that have come from Ukraine. So any external event, whether it's the typhoon, Ukraine, the Gulf of Aden, all of those things have had an impact on us somewhere this year, unfortunately, and it's something that the project team just have to cope with and change, basically.
So I think Steve, the kind of summarized it probably into try and sort of three key points, but I think the just sheer depth of knowledge process actually required that needs to be kind of orchestrated on that journey from the left to right, but also the fact that I can build it for the UK, I can work with National Grid, but then if I'm doing one in Japan or if I'm doing one in Thailand, I've got to basically kind of work out how we codify processes to work in different regions and sort of different stakeholder groups.
Yeah, and I guess just in the UK, we've actually dealt with 3 grid operators. So there's 2 in Scotland, 1 in England. So and that is sort of the complexity. Each have their own little nuances, guidances that we have to follow. We're blessed as a team. So in terms of knowledge management, we've got 3 really dedicated commissioning managers that pull that whole process together. We do rely on our contractors. Let's not get away with it. SSE don't build these wind farms. Our contractors build them, deliver them. But we do need to look after most of the integration and make sure we can switch them on and do that safely at the end. So my 3 commissioning managers, including myself, all of that knowledge and experience is locked away in our head. We've not stopped. We've not taken a pause to write all of this down. And even to my point, if we wrote it all down, in a wordy document, a PDF, a PowerPoint, a Visio, however it is, the projects evolve every 2 years. So that means going back to that knowledge that's written down and updating it. And that's something we're not particularly good at. It takes a long while to get that information out of people's heads. People try and protect it. They see it as a threat to share that information. And in terms of, future growth, and I'll just flip over there, we're all getting on, as you can see. My hair's grey now. I'm probably only 30, but that's offshore wind for you. But retirement approaches, so we need to look after the next people that are coming through to do my job, basically. So we need to transfer that knowledge, and help with their development. And what we've found really is an added benefit that we didn't see with working with Method Grid is we can get that knowledge written down out of people's heads. They don't see it as quite of a threat because they're putting the knowledge down. They're also using the tool to make their day-to-day job slightly simpler, and then bringing the rest of the team and their deputies through with them. So that's been a key element for us. As the head of the commissioning team, so we're looking after 3 projects in various states of construction at the moment, 1 at the end, 1 mid-construction, 1 just at the very early beginnings, and a pipeline of bright ideas with some others that are just sort of desktop ideas and studies at the moment. So one of the challenges we had was, you've got great knowledge in the team, the execution is good, the safety is good. Generally, all of these can be improved. We're not perfect by any means, but how are you going to replicate this? So to do it again and transfer the UK knowledge to Ireland, to transfer that to any other markets that we're successful in, and that can be anywhere, America, Australia, Japan, to name a few. So we need to get these processes written down and have some element of transferability quickly, because some of the auctions that do come through, when they're successful, they are actually, unlike the UK sometimes, other governments have done a lot of the pre-development and the transmissions actually already built for us, ready to connect into. So rather than the lead time of years, potentially we have to make a really quick start and hit the ground running in a matter of months sometimes. So again, another advantage of having processes written down, the knowledge written down, we hope to accelerate the actual timeline to actually getting these projects into construction and into commissioning.
I think it's a good point to make on the people side. See, like renewables, I think every graduate, even when I speak to the kind of consulting firms, all of the kind of ones that are in there kind of going through their kind of graduate scheme, they're all like, where do you want to go? And they're like, well, we want to go to renewables. So it's a really kind of growth area. I think that the challenge is, if it's not written down, those graduates are just going to want to soak up knowledge. All it does is just, if there's only a limited number of SMEs that know it codified, they're constantly kind of supporting and, repeating themselves and giving them the support they need. Or in some cases, it's not there and they kind of feel a little bit lost at sea, and that can be kind of a kind of difficult experience for some of them. So it's it's critical really about meeting. We're only going to go one way really with renewables, which is going to do more and grow that business and see more opportunities. So it's just really about how we successfully scale organizations to meet that challenge.
Yeah, agree. There's only going to be more projects, more work. The industry is globally literally looking for tens of thousands of new people, and whether that's back office, front office, engineers, design, consenters, electrical engineers, technicians. You know, the whole gamut of people are needed to supply this. There's plenty of people out there more than capable of doing the job from other industries. We take a lot of people from defence injuries, a lot of people coming across from oil and gas. But what they want to know is, you know, what is the SSE way of commissioning a wind farm? And, you know, not only do they want to know, our board wants to know, our stakeholders want to know, the lenders, project financiers, they want to know, you know, what is the SSE way? If we're going to work with you on the projects, you know, we want to make sure they're going to be executed well. So again, the upside of this is being able to demonstrate that we've got our processes written down. As we now start to move from developing the playbooks into execution, hopefully we can do that.
And then Steve, I don't know, the one thing I wanted to cover really on this was we kind of posted it on LinkedIn recently. It was just about the kind of human machine. So a lot of what we do at Method Grid is mainly around human psychology, about, you know, what do you need to put in place for people to be successful. And what we came up with a phrase is the kind of lazy problem solver. So humans are naturally incredibly lazy, i.e. we want to find the path of least resistance. We want to find the quickest way of doing things. It's not a bad trait. It's a fantastic trait that we have. It drives kind of innovation, our creative thinking. It's, you know, we're trying to find ways of being lazy. And what we thought as well, look, the whole premise of why we wanted to join project management and knowledge management and sort of together was the fact that if someone's going to have to go away and read something, try and find it, search for it, then read it, and then try and apply it, if that's like, you know, 5-10 minutes, we've probably lost their attention. You know, they'll just go and say, well, who can I speak to? Can I just use what I used to do elsewhere? Because that's the quickest path. So what we found is, look, try and play on the kind of lazy aspect. So it's really trying to make process execution and delivery as simple as possible. The other side is that we're kind of natural problem solvers. We love solving problems. We're kind of motivated to solve problems. And if we don't solve problems, it's kind of, we become demotivated. So a lot of why we kind of made Method Grid allow teams to actually tailor and write size playbooks was really, we wanted them to be endowed to the actual solution. They are solving the problem, they are tailoring the methodology, they're tailoring the process and right sizing it. But actually, rather than that be in someone's head, it's actually very visible for all the teams to see. It's very easy to assure. So there's two aspects really of what drove the design of Method Grid is, yes, make it easier, make them be lazy. So merge knowledge and project management together, but also recognize that for complex environments, complex problems or complex processes, put more onus on the people to get it right. Allow them to tailor it and right size them, but give them kind of guardrails and guidance on it. And the kind of next wave really for us is what we call the kind of perceived risk and learning. So what we recognized is, yes, if you did your initial training courses when you first joined the firm or you first joined the organization, 6 months or 12 months into your organization, you can't remember where they are. And what we spent a lot of time now with the platform is being able to integrate like training, e-learning resources into the playbook. So, you know, if you can't remember how to do risk management and you're not sure about how the company wants you to do it, then simply you can click, open up the e-learning and get refresher training there and then when you're actually in delivery. So a lot of the things is really just trying to design the system to help be lazy. But this is the kind of core challenge we see with most clients, where I've spent an enormous amount of time writing it down. I spent months and months writing it down, but then when it comes to execution and delivery, initial uptake was great, but then 6 months later, people just think it's left on the shelf. Nobody looks at this process, nobody looks at the policies, the procedures. It's just shelfware, gathering dust. And the real focus for us was to try and actually, can we make things more dynamic and simpler and quicker for teams? I mean, I think, Stephen, I remember when our initial chats December, you were like, oh, this could be 6 months, of writing it down. I was like, oh no, this will be like 3-4 weeks, Steve, and we'll be done.
Yeah. So when we started off, sort of typical process mapping type process, yellow stickets on the office wall, hoping they didn't leave any marks. Converting that into a document. In the early days, we to be honest, we didn't know playbooks existed. I couldn't have explained what they were at all. We didn't look at the market, so we were going to really look at a traditional Word document, get it out as a series of procedures. And I guess my fear was that once we'd actually got around to writing them, getting them reviewed, getting them approved, getting them cross-referenced, a document number added to them, and then stuck on our document library or SharePoint, people will probably struggle to find them. And knowing that we keep changing directions sometimes, for good reasons, the technology changes, our markets change, external events happen all of the time. And you have to adapt to that change. We wanted something that was live, really, because I just didn't want to see these documents, I would say, stuck on a virtual shelf, as I call it. So we did look inwards as to what the rest of our businesses were doing. And there were people out there, doing some fantastic process mapping, really good documentation, really good collaboration between the teams, but it kind of stuck at a single sort of sheet on your screen. And I wanted to do a little bit more, especially on the development side, and the ability to go back if we've got something wrong, even if it's just a spelling error, to go back and change it so I could republish it the next day, or to translate it, into Japanese, into Polish if we suddenly entered that market. So I wanted something that was really agile. And when we went externally, we did talk to a few suppliers, came across Method Grid. And to be honest, just to have the process map in the elements and the playbook elements there with the swim lanes was a big gold star. But when we realised some of the other features of it, the knowledge management, the stuff we could do to it, then that's what sold us. And we're still learning, to be honest. I don't think we're fully understanding of what we've got, what we've built. We've had to go backwards a few times, make a few changes. But that's all within the destiny of the people we've trained and the users of the system, which is a real upside.
I think, Steve, I think the point of like fail fast also kind of comes into this, which, something looks great on paper. When you try and put it and try and use it in delivery, and teams start using it, and it's like, oh, we'd never do that there. We need to move this around. Actually, we can't do that for this project, or actually, where's X, where's Y? I think the sooner you can try and get that feedback, the quicker you get kind of into kind of more iterative improvement into ways of working. A lot of the times it can be, look, theoretically that looks really logical on Visio on a process map, but when it comes into practice, actually this is where we're kind of at the boilerplate, and actually we need to adjust it and right size it to make it more practical for teams to execute.
Yeah.
Cool. So I think, Steve, your playbook, we can't share SSE's playbook for security reasons, naturally, but it looks very similar. It looks very similar to that kind of redacted version. I suppose, Steve, from your perspective, I suppose, how did you find it going through the kind of playbook approach?
I mean, without your support and the team support, fairly scary, to be honest. I'm literally the wrong side of my generation, probably be picking up new IT skills. I am of that age now where the TV sometimes confuses me. It's an easy to use system. The support is there, with Rachel and Luke for anyone who's considering it. It's as easy as moving your boxes around PowerPoint. I would say probably easier than that because they don't change shape or size or disappear. We've come up with a standard layout, which is much the same as everyone else's playbook, I guess. A little bit of color coding. So you can see our capital governance scheme going across on the verticals. So typically as a big project investment business, then we run from development stage all the way through development engineering, construction, handover and into the asset management stage. So that's reflected along the top. The different swim lanes then reflect our business process. So we've got one there for commissioning, one for completions. I'm pleased to say it looks like we've got further using that and rolling it out in the business. It looks like our asset management, engineering and development colleagues are now looking to use that. At this stage, each of our business units or even just the departments have got their own playbooks, which was sort of the guidance we got from Method Grid. Do our own thing, do it well, get it accepted by the teams, get it in use by the teams, correct it, change it, alter it, which can be done literally within hours if we need to, minutes to be honest. The next stage, I guess, is probably almost the more exciting for me, is when we start to collaborate between the teams, work out where we've got dual processes, where we can harmonise some of our processes, where we can work better. The fact that it's all sitting there on the cloud, we have teams literally spread around the globe, different time zones, on boats, on satellite phones, on iPads, in substations where there's no networks. So having this available in the cloud that we can screen share, set up the users and just move stuff around and talk it through, open the elements, change them, close them, move them, it is a great boon to the system. It would have literally took us months to have done that on a Word document or PowerPoint, I fear. And that's been the real advantage, I think, is the agility of getting the system up and running, to change it, to get it saved up there, but then to amend it and change it. And the collaboration will come next, where we get our processes working a lot smoother. I think we mentioned the assurance side. Pip, I don't know if you come back to that as a sort of a leader of the team. I need to know our projects and our project managers are doing the same thing, roughly the same thing. The same things that are right, put it that way, not the same things that are wrong. So we've got our actions and our RAG statuses there, which you can see by the different colours and the progress bars. So rather than the routine meetings, death by PowerPoint and KPIs, then what we're moving towards now is we just look at our playbook, look at the dashboard, and we can see where we've got people marked up RAG status. We can trace comments. I can actually track the execution of our projects as they move through development into construction, and from construction into commissioning now. Been doing that roughly only for 2 or 3 weeks, but it's looking pretty good, to be honest. It's changing the way we communicate with each other as well, and giving us a little bit more time to concentrate on perhaps things that we should be, safety, that kind of thing.
I think probably the key design decision, I'm glad we did it. It was, let's design it around the LCP, like SSE standard life cycle, and then really then it's just mapping the process against what do we need to do at each stages. I think your kind of example you used with when we were talking was, look, I walked into a gate review and I didn't have kind of clarity of where we were, or things had been ticked off. It's kind of just helping you get that confidence that you've got complete visibility across all the portfolio. And
you can see there from the screenshot, there's a RAG status sitting there red, so immediately it draws your attention to it from an assurance point of view. We can drill down on that, find out why it's red, whether one of the teams needs some help, whether we've got a hold up. Color coded, I can tell us an external process, something to do with National Grid, I've got a red. So it's fairly easy to track that down for what I need to find out now. And previously that had been a lot of emails backwards and forwards or another team's call. So it does tend to make us a bit more efficient as well, we're finding.
How have the team found it, Steve?
I mentioned before that I think the initial route was we want to get all the knowledge out of your head. They thought I was just going to replace them, to be honest. So they see it as a bit of a threat, to be replaced, and no one wants that. People don't want to be replaced by a computer, but computers don't commission wind farms at the end of the day. People do. So what we need to do is to follow the same processes. If we bring someone new into the team and their knowledge is sort of half of the job, the rest of the knowledge sits there in the playbook for them to learn from. So we've now brought that down to the next level of the commissioning engineers and the completions engineers. We started with training those team up this month, and they're now been allocated their actions. And so we've got sort of the next level in the business down, from the managers on site involved in the day-to-day process as well. And what we're seeing is they've got new ideas, they want to do something different. Already suggested a few improvements that we can do with Method Grid in our playbooks, and again, easy to change, easy to adapt that, or fairly easy to justify why we want to keep some of the things the same. The main thing we're trying to do is to repeat the best processes, keep doing the best practices and learn from our mistakes, really.
Yeah, I think I know it's frustrating, Steve, sometimes, because you've got to make changes to that play, like the kind of master playbook. But I think that's the bit that because teams are actually using it and it's kind of testing it. I think it gets easier. I think you're still on the kind of first 6 months of using it in delivery, so it will get less. Yep. But kind of initial first 6 months, the teams are going to prod it and poke it and try and find out, can we do X? But I think that's the bit where, because it's so visible for teams, you can make those changes and tweaks, and they can see that. They can, in some cases, do it themselves. But I mean, that versus, go and update the PowerPoint or go and update the SharePoint site or the Word document, it would get lost. I think it would just get lost in a kind of ether of content.
Yeah, I think it's important for people to own the changes they want to make as well. So, from completions engineers yesterday, wanting to put more evidence in, which was a surprise. They actually want to put more information in the elements rather than make it easier and a tick box exercise. That's definitely what we didn't want. The changes that were suggested on Friday we had in place this week, and they're closing the actions out and pulling the evidence up. So it's really important to have something. Again, we talked about agility earlier, that people can adapt to. They feel they own it now, whereas if this had been a Word documents, process documents on our doc library, then ultimately I'd have been the owner, and to get something changed like that, I can count the weeks, the months that would have took the document to come out for a review, back in for a review, change document references. We're ultimately far quicker now to adapt if we need to.
Yeah. You meant, obviously, I think we built most of your playbook. Obviously, was AI assisted. Your sort of experience of that, I think that was fairly new.
Yeah. I knew nothing about AI, to be honest. Only what I'd seen on the BBC News, and generally it was probably negative. University students writing their assignments, and even my kids probably knew more about AI than I did. So I have to put my hand up. I don't really understand it. It is magic to me. I refer to it as Google, which was vaguely insulting, I think, to anyone who knows about AI. It's been it's been wondrous, to be honest. So it needs training. If you're any IT system, if you put garbage in, you'll get garbage out. So you do have to be a little bit careful. Lessons learned was acronyms. We're an industry that just thrives on thousands of acronyms, and some are exactly the same, just mean something different. So one lesson learned: if you rely on acronyms, you will literally go and bake a cake somewhere. That'll be the ingredients that'll do for you. Be careful. Train it on the documents. Train it on the knowledge you want. And I've blown away for how quick this was going to be. I measured adopting a new IT system in months, if not years. And to be frank, by the first coffee, I think we'd got about 80% of the way through some of our first elements, which was stunning, really. So I had to wonder what to do the next day. So that was a pleasant distraction to think about what to do that evening, to be honest. Really good.
Yeah. I think that your speed to put in context into process is also, I think that helps teams very quickly understand what it is. So sometimes, you'll do process mapping, and you'll map out the process, and people can see boxes, and then they'll start to challenge, kind of, okay, well, what's behind that box? I can't remember. And I think what we've learned really through AI, like using AI to help kind of get content into the playbook, like what is the commissioning plan, what are these deliverables, is we can use AI to get the kind of at least a draft of it, and then teams can look at it and go, okay, that's what it means, and then they can design around that. Versus, you look at that, you've mapped it out, you go away for a week, you come back and go, what did we mean about? I can't remember what we meant by that box. It's kind of that kind of conversation. But it's yeah, Steve, on yours is on record, I think, as the quickest playbook I think we've drafted.
I'm not too sure what that says about our knowledge or our process mapping to be the quickest, but yeah, probably good.
No. I think it was obviously. I think when you were our kind of first renewables kind of energy client, so we need your sort of SME sort of guidance just to help us understand it. But yeah, I think it was a few tweaks to fine tune the model, and it was pretty good on all the national grid stuff. So that was really good and positive.
We're a fairly traditional DNO based company. Been going 100+ years, putting wood poles in people's gardens and getting electricity to the homes. So, our rate of change and growth has been relatively slow over that time. So, it's certainly accelerating now as we get new IT, new technology coming. So, we need to adapt, need to change, need to keep up with the times, to be honest.
And Steve, this kind of the kind of playbook concept is obviously we built UK, but naturally I think it's then trying to build other playbooks for other kind of regulatory sectors, or trying to find out if it's a playbook in itself, or are we just adapting the master playbook to kind of reflect different levels of regulation and different parts. But I think that's the bit of flexibility we kind of also give, is actually, okay, I've got one playbook that works great. How do I actually now take this and apply it to another region or another country, or scale it, and not being kind of restricted on, well, it has to all be one thing. Actually, we can work with a region, we can build their own playbook, give them the kind of same level of ownership to their ways of working as well.
Yeah, I guess going all the way back to the beginning, pre-method grid, then that was the challenge for our MD, is the team has got great knowledge. You've proven you can switch a wind farm on and commission it in the UK. Think you can do it in Ireland, because it's a few kilometres off the coast, and we're pretty close for how we work over in Ireland. But then to translate the knowledge and the process, to the other side of the world, to Japan, different language, vastly different culture, different technology, different risks, typhoons, deep water, earthquakes, different frequencies, multiple DNO connections. To have a way to write down what we do in the UK, what we do well, but then having the route to translate that, if you like, not only into a different language, which was Pip actually earlier. I don't think he was there, so you can literally use this to translate if you want. But to use your UK master playbook as such, and then convert that knowledge into Japanese using AI. Using the learning functionality and pointing it towards knowledge that we've got in Japan, or is freely available on the web in Japan. Again, you can get comfortable that we can commission a wind farm. You can probably get 80% comfortable, probably within a few days, that we can actually work this out without having to send someone over, without having to employ armies of consultants to write documents for you. And the translation function is just a boon, because it's going to make it far easier to work, with the locals in that country. And that's something we will have to do. We can't just expect to send everyone from SSE across to Japan and it's an SSE wind farm. These will be Japanese wind farms we're building.
Yeah, that's the other bit. Is the playbook, I think, also helps people visualize, like the left to right as well. Sometimes it can be, there's a conversation to have, like a collaborative look. We do this here, where do you do it? Oh, actually we need to move it over here and adjust it. And actually, that part of co-design and ways of working is quite intuitive. We did the prototype session yesterday, didn't we, for another playbook? And it is nice just to be, moving things around and not being kind of trapped or rigid. That's a massive undertaking manually if we're changing content.
Yeah, really good. The SSE does have our corporate governance processes and the life cycle information really nailed down, to be honest. And I guess what we probably saw is overly bureaucratic and controlling. You can see why having that sort of framework, everything sort of hangs underneath it, basically. And it really does give you a good start for process mapping to rely on some of your company functions like that. I suspect everyone has some form of life cycle, whether you're engineering, IT, HR, NHS, rail track. We've all got that foundation to build on.
Yeah. Right. So, guys, just any questions you might have for us? Steve, I suppose, yeah. I mean, talked about commissioning. I suppose, knowing what you know now, what would you do? Is there anything you'd do slightly differently?
Yeah, perhaps launched on one project to learn before we launched 6 more playbooks in under a few days, because I can only tell you how many times I've changed the titles and put some numbers and letters in front of that. You know, my hands up. I was just a bit impatient to get this going with the teams, and to be honest, you know, the projects drew us to that. They all wanted to give it a go and start it as well. So it was pretty well received by the team. That was a pleasant surprise, because no one wants change. And you know, people don't always respond well to what is a deemed threat.
Yeah, I think I worded it is humans don't like change they haven't created themselves. Is a better phrase. Yeah. And I think that's the bit where I was like, well, actually, if we try and sell the playbook as, actually, guys, look, it's not rigid, it's not static. It's, look, here it is, but you know, it's got all the knowledge and information you need. But you can, let's go through this, tweak it, right size it. It's less of a, oh, this is just a kind of control thing. This is actually something that helps me, and I feel like I can shape and move it around. I think that's a kind of key element for it.
Yeah, I'm just going for a few points, so you know, I'll just work from the bottom. Janine, there's a good point on about the great crew change. You know, between oil and gas and renewables, that crew change in renewables happens every 2 years, because the project team from construction moves on to the next project, either internally or, you know, if we're using a lot of contractors and consultants to support us, you know, half your team disappears generally a few months before you're finished. And that's why it's really important to get the knowledge written down. And that's where we started. Our commissioning team were all contractors. Not that there's anything wrong with contractors, you know, we've all been there, we've all done it, but we don't keep that knowledge within the company. So rather than having the SSE way, we have someone else's second-hand way, for better or worse. So, yeah, that transition happens every 2 years, Janine, unfortunately.
Neil, our method grid looking at common cross-industry themes that could allow best practice to be shared. Neil, we do a few projects with industry bodies. So we've done sort of praxis. We built a kind of praxis playbook in the platform. I think the biggest one, and Tom, if you're listening, probably put the link in. The biggest project we did last year, still ongoing, was with Network Rail, and we made a public available playbook for PACE, which provides anyone in the world access to Network Rail's PACE methodology for capital project delivery. And mainly that is probably more the kind of national infrastructure owners, i.e., this is our process, we want all employees and supply chain to understand it and be compliant with it. But again, if that's behind a SharePoint, if that's nobody from supply chain can access it, it's difficult. Hence why we launched PACE Digital, which gives everyone access to that playbook. So hopefully, yeah, Tom, if you put that in the chat, Neil, you can have a look at that. And yeah, that's a sort of example. Still really keen to do more within other industry bodies about making more best practice available using playbooks. Kerry Ann, a traditional process view would provide a sequence of activities and so handoffs between different parties. How is this captured in the final action card view you shared? Sure. So within the playbook, you can build obviously the tiles, and then when you click on those tiles, they open up and they'll provide the kind of actions and controls that teams need to feel. They can hold like videos, it can hold the templates, the files that you want them to produce. The other thing that we can do with the playbook is also those tiles can be connected together. So you can say what the predecessors and successors are. So once you've done this, you know, you can click in the element and it will take you to the next element you need to complete. So if you want to guide teams through the process through left to right, you can build that navigation within the individual tiles. So it just makes it easier for teams. But most, I mean, that's probably more, I'd say, needed for the kind of entry level sort of young careers on what do I do next. The more senior people just like, I know what the flow is next, but you can signpost and improve that navigation as well. Okay, do you have any further tips for approaching this with a team, both to get their buy-in, but also the practical side of gathering all their knowledge? I think a big advocate, Kay, for this one is when we do most of our kind of engagements with clients, are basically we'll prototype their playbook for them. I think a lot of questions look, are we a good solution choice? And we're like, well, we don't know. Our side, the only way we're going to know that is if we can try and prove it. So I think we normally prototype a process, and even if the client hasn't written it down, we're saying, well, it's in your head. Come on, then let's build a playbook. What are the things you need to do? And within 1-2 hours, you very quickly got them bought in and engaged, and them proactively sharing their knowledge. The fear element, I think Steve has also sort of alluded to, is trying to write all the knowledge process down is a massive undertaking. So sometimes you get writer's block. We found that with some of the larger implementations. When you ask someone to say, look, write about I don't know, the company way of how we manage risk, that's on someone, one individual, and they'll get, oh, I'm not sure, I'm a bit nervous about writing it down, and people are going to look at it and say I'm wrong. There's kind of sometimes there's kind of writer's block as well. I think a lot of it's where AI can actually help with that. Writing what a risk register is, writing what a risk management plan is, or a schedule management plan. AI is probably better than me now at writing kind of the quality criteria, the description of it. So a lot of the knowledge capture is less about them spending hours and hours writing. It's actually, guys, look, here's a draft. Can you just go through it, please, and just add your knowledge, that how you make this more relevant and specific to our business. And that's less of a drag on their time and effort. Hopefully that's helped. Another one from Carrie-Anne. Another question: what kind of inputs does AI require to develop the initial process flow for teams to review and assess? Well, Steve, you're probably the best advocate for this one. Not very much. I think you sent me a Word document, which is just a summary of the post-it notes of stage and deliverable, and that was pretty good enough for us to get the shell of the playbook built. What Steve did call out, which I mentioned, is what we do need is just AI is fantastic, but it does need a bit of fine tuning. It won't, some acronyms it won't pick up. We'll have to train it and tweak it, but that's the kind of 10%, Steve. I think probably 90% was pretty straightforward. 10% needs a bit more refined. So I think the phrase, we can work with fag, packet and string, which we've done, or other models. If I take Network Rail to the extreme, is Network Rail had it all written down, had like 12 standards, and we had to train the model on understanding all of those standards, so that when it rendered content, it was all aligned with Network Rail code of conduct, their policies and their standards. But timing doesn't really make any difference. It's probably still the same speed and time, regardless of whether we're starting from scratch or whether we've got loads of information to process. Hopefully, any more questions? There we go. No, okay. Well, look, if there is, please reach out to myself on either LinkedIn, and we can continue the conversation. Just to draw us to a close, then, look, if you're interested in sort of the other resources we've got, so Pace Digital is a kind of read-only playbook. I'll go in full mode so you can see this, guys. So if you want to see what, and thanks Tom for putting the link up there. Yeah, that's a read-only playbook. So, I mean, that's just a playbook that's read-only. It doesn't have all the tracking and assurance and ticking things off, but as a way of communicating at industry scale, the kind of read-only mode is what we used for Network Rail. And their kind of case study is on our website, and I think we did a GRIDtalk with them a couple of months ago. I think we'll be at a few events this year with them talking about Pace Digital. Also, in February, we launched the Academy. So, like I said, this is sort of integrating e-learning and training resources directly in the Playbook so that teams can access those resources when they're in delivery. And if you want to know more about actually building playbooks, we did a white paper, and it was a great collaboration across our different clients about, look, what kind of best practice have we learned that needs to go into the thinking about building playbooks before you get excited about building tiles and stage gates and themes. Actually, what's the thinking that goes behind to make that successful? So that white paper is also available from our website as well. We did a massive I think early start of the year, we did a massive piece of work just on helping organizations do capability improvement. So there's a kind of an approach that we follow about how we help organizations improve capability. There's a kind of white paper called the capability formula. There's a canvas that we also put there, which just helps teams think about, look, if this is my capability, what do I need to think about and how do I design it? Right through to, for those that are in the consulting world, kind of a capability tracker that tracks the sort of top 10 capabilities that you can review quarterly. And so yeah, just a sort of final reminder, we'll be with LACE next month, and this is looking at probably similar, they're kind of much more mature in terms of their methodology in terms of IP management, but they're going through the kind of hints and tips that help to keep all of their IP, their playbooks relevant, and how they engage the teams to be kind of more proactive or have a voice in suggesting in improvements. So yeah, it was a fantastic case study for how actually you make change land using with MethodGrid, but also some of the kind of processes and like nice hints and tips and ideas that actually teams really enjoyed. So yeah, should be a great session for next month. For those that are out and about next week, I think we are at Digital Construction Week on Wednesday and Thursday next week, which is at the Excel Centre in London. So if you're visiting Digital Construction Week, come and say hello. I've got no idea where I am, but I'm sure Tom is going to tell me where we're placed in the event. But yeah, please come and hunt us out and find us at the event if you're there. Cool. That's it from us. So thank you very much for your time and afternoon, and yeah, hopefully look forward to speaking to you next month. Cheers, Stephen. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Thanks, everyone.
Cheers, guys.